A blade of wheatgrass bobbed from one corner of his mouth as he looked her up and down with masculine arrogance. There's no such thing as a farm in Wyoming. Well, what do you call this, then? A ranch. Libby gestured toward the sun-baked outbuildings tilting drunkenly around her own personal patch of prairie. Faded letters over the barn's wide double doors read Lackaduck Farm. I call it Lackaduck Farm. That's what the people before me called it, too. Yeah, well, they weren't from around here either. They were New Yorkers and got smacked on the bottom and sent home by Mother Nature. Thought they'd retire out here on some cheap real estate and be gentlemen farmers. They didn't realize there's a reason the real estate's cheap. It's tough living. He looked her in the eye, no doubt judging her unfit for a life only real men could endure. You think you're up for it? I know I am. Libby hoped she sounded more confident than she felt. This is what I've always wanted, and I'm going to make it work. She didn't mention the fact that she had to make it work. She didn't have anything else. No career, not even much of a job, and no boyfriend, not even a dog. The dog had died in September, right before the boyfriend ran off. Lucky couldn't help it, but Bill Cooperman could have stuck around if he'd only tried. He just had a wandering eye, and it finally wandered off for good with a hotshot editor from the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. The hotshot editor was also Libby's boss, so she basically lost everything in the space of about 6 weeks. All she had left was a broken heart, a cherry red pickup, and the contents of her desk in a battered cardboard box. Since her professional and romantic aspirations were a bust, she'd sold her one-bedroom condo in downtown Atlanta and literally bought the farm. She was now the proud owner of 35 acres of sagebrush and a quaint clapboard farmhouse in Lackaduck, Wyoming. At the moment, tumbleweeds were her primary crop and grasshoppers her only livestock. But the place was as far from Atlanta as she could get, and she figured a fresh coat of paint and a flock of free-range chickens would make it her dream home, one utterly unlike the one she'd left behind. So far, Wyoming was like another planet, and that was fine with her. I'm definitely going to make this work, she repeated, as much to herself as to her new neighbor. Guess you'll be glad to get some help, then. He reached over the truck's battered tailgate for the dinette chair, which freed itself from the toaster cord the minute he touched it. Swinging it over his shoulder, he headed for the house. Libby sighed. She had her pride, but she wasn't about to turn her bad back on an able-bodied man who was willing to tote furniture for her. Beggars can't be choosers, and Luke Rawlins wasn't really such a bad choice anyway. She wasn't in the market for his brand of talent, but it sure was fun to watch him move furniture. Those chaps, with their swaying leather fringe, must have been designed by the early cowboys to highlight a man's best assets. Luke set the chair in the kitchen, then traipsed back out and scanned the contents of the truck bed. He'd been worried when the Lackaduck place had sold, but the new neighbor seemed all right. More than all right. When he'd first seen her, tussling with her furniture in the back of the pickup, he'd thought love might have finally come to Lackaduck. Then he'd realized all he could see was her backside and decided it was probably just lust. Besides, her sofa was definitely a deal-breaker. It was enormous and hideous. Once they wrestled the dang thing inside, it dominated the tiny front room like some evil crouching monster. Carved cherubs on each corner lofted a complicated scrollwork banner in their pudgy fists. They were probably supposed to be cute, but Luke thought they looked like evil leering babies preparing to strangle unsuspecting sofa-sitters with their long wooden ribbon. He made a silent vow to stay as far away as possible from that piece of furniture. Careful, Libby said as they swung it into place. It's an antique. Antique. He did his